Michiganders can be a superstitious bunch. We find all sorts of reasons to explain the world around us, sometimes pulling from science, sometimes tradition, and sometimes from our imaginations. What happens when we can't readily explain our experiences? And what happens when a ghost story gets out of hand? Do these legends stem entirely from fantasy? Or are people seeing things no one can truly explain? I'm Krista K. Coburn.
And I'm Kay Gray.
Welcome to Haunted Mitten.
This episode is going to be a little different from the norm. Usually we have a loose script and have some discussion here and there while we tell you about a location haunted by a ghost or entity of some kind. Today is going to be a lot more discussion as our topic has both a lot of information and very little at the same time. I'm talking, of course, about everyone's favorite wolf-headed stalker, the Michigan Dogman. Let me start off by saying that the internet has quite a bit to say about the Dogman, as long as you don't mind at all saying the exact same thing. So we're going to piece together as much of a history for the creature as we can.
Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like we're pulling from a lot of different mythologies and cultures, and that apparently other people have not done before.
Right? I guess we are, for some reason, the first people to think of the French and the Native Americans, but okay.
Yeah, never mind that Michigan was French for quite a while.
Yeah, like you do.
Back
That's
in
fine.
the day.
But where our story, I suppose, really begins is April 1st, 1987, just a couple months before I was born, with the Traverse City radio DJ Steve Cook, who wrote a song called The Legend under the name Bob Farley that, according to him, he thought he was just making up. So we're not going to play the song on the podcast because we don't have that kind of money. But if you support our Patreon, maybe one day we will.
We can probably find a link to it in the description.
Yes. It's definitely on YouTube. However, I'm going to read probably not the whole song. It's not terribly long, but it's longer than I think any of you guys want to actually listen to. So Steve Cook wrote The Legend, released it on April 1st, 1987 in Traverse City, fully expecting this to just be some kind of April Fool's joke. He just wrote a song about this creature and about these people who encountered it and about like the legend that is this creature that multiple people saw over the decades, and was incredibly surprised when he started getting a bunch of phone calls of people with their own sightings. So this is part of The Legend, lyrics and story by Steve Cook. A cool summer morning in early June is when the legend began at a nameless logging camp in Wexford County where the Manistee River ran. 11 lumberjacks near the Garland Swamp found an animal they thought was a dog. In a playful mood, they chased it around till it ran inside a hollow log. A logger named Johnson grabbed him a stick and poked around inside. Then the thing let out an unearthly scream and came out and stood upright. None of those men ever said very much about whatever happened then. They just packed up their belongings and left that night, were never heard from again. It was 10 years later in 97 when a farmer near Buckley was found. Slumped over his plow, his heart had stopped. There were dog tracks all around.
Yeah, I will say this is a popular song to play around Halloween.
Oh, for sure.
Even though it was an April Fool's joke thing. Yeah, I find it often on local Halloween playlists.
Because this is so much a Halloween song, why was the April Fool's joke for that year?
That is kind of funny because yeah, it's become a Halloween thing since then. Like I understand April Fool's obviously jokes, but yeah, it's like it's about a monster and a monster's legend. So yeah, that's very Halloween. Yeah. And Halloween also has pranks associated with it too.
Oh, so, for sure.
Maybe he got the idea on Halloween and was like, I don't want to wait another year. I'm
not waiting that long. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, he ended up getting phone call after phone call of people calling in with their own encounters of, oh my God, you're singing about the Dogman, I've seen the Dogman, it happened, blah, 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 you know, like, oh, the Dogman ran in front of our car back in like 78 or something.
Mm-hmm. So does he ever mention Dogman in the song, or is it just a dog creature?
No, it's just a dog creature.
Okay. So Dogman was already a thing that like got associated with this song.
Well,
Or did it?
yes and no.
Okay.
So that's going to be my answer to a lot of questions that you're going to have today.
Okay.
And this is why I couldn't really write a script about it, because yes, but no, but yes, but no. As far as Steve Cook and like the public world at large knew, April 1st, 1987 is the first mention ever of there ever being some kind of wolfman, werewolf, dogman in Michigan.
Okay.
However, I have lots of tabs up of personal stories that say a complete different thing. Let's start with the quote unquote earliest known dogman sighting in 1887. This
Oh, it's like 100 years prior to the song.
Yes.
Okay.
However, the first sighting of I lost my page again. Where are you? I have too many tabs open. I have so many tabs, guys.
Yeah, I do that too. Greg has been using my computer because his is dead for all intents and purposes. And he's just like, how do you have so many tabs open?
When we're done recording, all of them will get shut. But I need them. Yeah, we're not the only ones, don't worry. Greg is the weird one for not having a lot of tabs.
Yeah.
Tabs are life. What did we ever do before tabs?
Yeah, seriously. I just had a bunch of windows open.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just crowded the toolbar instead of like the browser. It's fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
So the 1887, the first known dogman encounter was supposedly documented in Wexford County, Michigan. Already sound familiar? Two lumberjacks were out in the woods when they spotted a creature they described as having the body of a man and the head of a dog, which sounds exactly like the opening lines of the Steve Cook song released in 1987.
Yes, it does.
And when trying to find anything else about this Wexford County sighting in 1887, they're all the same. I don't know if there is an origin to it.
I suspect the origin is the song. That's interesting.
There's one website that refers to another website that refers to another website that refers to the first website. Like they're all just going in a circle of the story. And I'm like, no, wait.
Yeah, I ran into that with a lot of the shipwreck stories too. Like everything is referring back to this one book.
To the one book or to each other. And you're like, who said it first?
Right.
But a lot of websites, unfortunately, start with, well, we've had documented sightings since 1887. And I'm like, then I would like to see those documents.
Yeah.
And no one has been able to refer to them or anything other than other websites that are like I have a website from Ranker that's like 12 darkly fascinating stories of the Michigan Dogman.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of luck when we request documents that people claim to have. They never get back to us.
Yeah, they tend to not email me back. Sorry for my chair. We're going to be squeaking a lot. As you can tell, we're still recording from home. So 1887 is apparently the first sighting of the Michigan Dogman. And it also supposedly is seen in a 10-year cycle.
Oh.
And show up on years ending in 7.
Interesting.
So 1887, 1897, all the way, up through 1987, and so on. Which, from that Ranker article, if this story is true, is also kind of crap, because the first sighting that's listed on the Ranker, the Michigan Dogman has extraordinary leaping abilities, was in the fall of 1986. But it was near Manistee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A guy named Ray Greenway was driving home from the Manistee Army recruiting station, and the creature, as it apparently really loves to do, jumped out in front of his car and crossed the 2-lane road, giving him, just kind of a glimpse of what it was, but definitely had bright yellow eyes and cleared that 2-lane road in one leap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are so many. There's one in the fall of 2001. There's a 2006. There was apparently a sighting that happened in 1938. 17-year-old Robert Fortney was in Paris, Michigan, which I don't know where that is, but that's okay.
No.
I assume up there somewhere.
Interesting that it's got a French name.
Really? Oh, I'm an idiot. Standing near the Muskegon River in Paris, Michigan, so that helps. He was confronted by a massive black dog. He swore the beast went up on its hind legs and stared him down, but this time with blue eyes, not yellow. He fired his gun at the creature and it left. So I don't know. Like I already in doing this, it's like I started doing the research and it immediately just kind of circled back in on itself. But there are so many personal stories from people, not just the people that called Steve Cook on April 1st, 1987, but everybody from these websites. There's one of our favorite websites, Michigan's Other Side, of course, did a short story on this and listed reader encounter after reader encounter. There's at least 7 or 8 on their entry itself, and then another 5 or 6 in the comment section.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is honestly this is where I was left, just completely in the middle between Steve Cook made this all up and it got out of hand, and people are seeing spooky giant dogs in the woods and have been for hundreds of years, and yet nobody's been talking about it out loud.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there are like centuries of history of like dog man hybrids, anthropomorphic dog creatures, wolfman, dating back centuries.
Right.
Especially in French culture, which Michigan is steeped in French culture.
100%.
People nowadays don't really think about that, but we really were. Like, English didn't become the dominant language in Detroit until like the mid 19th century. And a lot of it, I think, was as a result of the Civil War, because people were like flooding north and stuff.
Oh, right.
Like, French was still a commonly spoken language in Detroit not that long ago.
No, really not that long ago.
So we are very much steeped in French superstition and so forth.
Yeah.
And legends.
Which makes me think about how weird it is that none of my sources have referenced any of that. They've referenced the Beast of Bray Road from Wisconsin, which we'll talk about a little later on. But none of them have brought up like the Beast of Gévaudan. None of them have brought up I totally forgot his name, but his first name was Peter. He was a werewolf in like the 1700s or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, him. I can't remember his last name for the life of me, but him. Yeah, nobody's brought up the really long French tradition of wolfman myths, and I find that really weird.
Yeah, because everything I found, they associate it with French American cultures like Cajun, French Canadian, all that kind of stuff, and it's like everyone just conveniently forgets that Michigan was part of those regions at one time. We were French for longer than we were British.
Yeah.
And the whole like the Lougarou, they're like, oh, it's a French American / Canadian culture. It's like, well, yes, we are part of that. Nobody talks about the Lougarou up here because we don't speak French anymore.
Right. And on that note, like none of the websites brought up native oral tradition either.
Yeah, which is also interesting because that is also part of Michigan culture.
Right.
In our history.
Yeah, look at like half of the place names. Half are French and half are native in some way.
Pretty much.
I will admit that I did not go super in depth into all the different tribes that have lived and still live and make their home in Michigan, into like all of their oral stories and all of their myths and legends passed down, because that's pretty much a PhD in itself.
Yeah, that's a lot. A lot of tribes have been through here.
Yeah. I did find one Ojibwe story about Winnebago and the wolves, which anthropomorphizes. I have words. A pack of wolves that Winnebago, who's seems to be a fairly large name in Ojibwe myth, visited and stayed with for a while. So I definitely would not call them werewolves, because these are just wolves, but they wore clothes. They spoke Winnebago's language, and I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly as well. And had magic.
Okay.
Essentially, they helped keep Winnebago alive in this story while he was traveling, and helped him defeat the evil Menadog, which are spirits. So one myth has human-like wolves, but they seem pretty chill, and their magic is really cool. They turned a sock into a deer tenderloin.
Oh, yum.
And a moccasin into something else, into another kind of food. But that's the only thing I found that could possibly be anywhere near to a wolf man. But it seems like it's not connected at all, because the wolf man or the dog man usually
Is not helpful.
is not a helpful creature. In fact, people usually describe it as wanting to attack and eat them.
Yeah, which would be closer to like the werewolf or the Lugaroo. It is interesting though, because apparently, because the Lugaroo is so old, like centuries old, that there's like a million different myths associated with it and traditions associated with it. And one of them is that it's a witch who uses their magic to transform into a wolf and do other things. So I find that interesting that there's that, we have wolves here who can use magic. And then also in the French tradition, there are like witches who are people who can use magic taking the form of a wolf or taking the form of a wolf human hybrid.
And some people have also compared the Dogman, and you saying witch that uses magic to transform into a wolf reminded me of this. Some people have compared the Dogman to skinwalkers.
Interesting.
I'm really happy I said that out loud with my windows shut. If there is one thing in the entire world that I'm legitimately afraid of, it's those. But those are not northern nations mythology. That's a lot more Southwest, and I believe very strictly like Navajo, Ute, possibly Apache. Please, listeners, correct me on all of the information that I have forgotten from college.
That's what I've read, that it's very much associated with Navajo. And yeah, people often are like, oh, it's Native American, blah blah blah. When we're like, that's like saying, oh, it's a European legend.
Right. Like, well, where? From where,
like, the Lugaroo isn't German, it's French.
Right.
Although my favorite thing I learned today, I'm such a language
rabbit
nerd.
Holes.
Oh, I love it. So the Garoo part of Lugaroo literally means wolf man, which okay, or wolf man wolf I guess.
Wolf man wolf, love it.
But Garoo of Lugaroo is a cognate of werewolf, which these two words sound and look nothing alike. So I was like, how?
Because French?
Well, yeah, because Romans. So way back when the Franks conquered France, the Franks were Germanic peoples and they could say a W sound. So like William is a really easy example. Mm-hmm. The French name version of William is Guillaume. Well, the Franks were over there spouting their Germanic W's all over the place, and the native Romano-Celtic people couldn't make a W sound. The closest they could do is gwa. So it was everything that was wa, they pronounced gwa. So werewolf became guarewolf, became guarul, became garul, became garoo. And that is how werewolf turned into garoo.
Huh, okay.
And then I guess everyone forgot what the hell garoo meant and they added Lou on the front of it. So it became the Wolfman Wolf. And if you're fascinated by language like I am, and you want to learn all about how the G and the GW thing came about, you can listen to the History of English Language podcast, episode 99. And he talked about some other examples between like William and Guillaume, ward and guard.
Okay.
Uard. Yeah. So it was once pronounced guard, most likely. Those are some pretty obvious. A lot of the words actually that we have that start with GU, that's likely where it came from.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And some we have the equivalent, like ward and guard. We have both words. Guardian, warden, they were once the same word. One was just more Frankified than the other.
Okay.
But there are others that existed and don't anymore. Like wardrobe, we have. Guard robe, we no longer have. But that's your fun little language nerdiness that I have. And yeah, one of my favorite podcasts is History of the English Language. And yeah, in episode 99, he gets into the whole WG thing.
Okay.
Impress your friends. Tell them werewolf and Lugaroo are cognates.
And then explain to them what cognates are.
Yes.
So that is actually that is all of the history. That's it. That's all there is.
Wow.
Yep.
Like we were saying, Lugarus have like probably 1,000-year history.
Yeah.
They have such a long history, we have no idea where it started. Yeah, for some reason they haven't connected this with the Dogman.
This is very strange to me.
It is, because there are sightings of Lugarus throughout the formerly French-speaking parts of America.
Mm-hmm.
And they do match up with a lot of the stories we have of the Dogman.
Yeah. This is a good time to bring up the Beast of Bray Road, which is essentially Wisconsin's Dogman. Wisconsin has its own, where I think they're more likely to call it a werewolf, who most recently has been seen in the Racine, Walworth, and Jefferson counties. It's also known as the man wolf, bear wolf, and indigenous dogman. So I guess take that, Michigan. It's said to be 6 feet tall with gray and brown fur. Its face resembles that of a wolf with shiny yellow eyes and pointed ears. Its body is furry but muscular, more like a man than a wolf. The creature runs on 4 legs but walks on 2, often sits on its haunches or kneels like a man. And yeah, that description was from legendsofamerica.com/Beast of Bray Road. And you'll actually hear about the Beast of Bray Road a lot more often than you will the Michigan Dogman.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of TV shows will talk about it. And the Dogman I don't hear about very often.
No, some people think it could be another kind of Bigfoot. Some people think it's a werewolf. Some people think it's a Wendigo, which is also terrifying.
Yeah. Ooh.
And then the more down to earth inclined to think that it's probably just a misidentified wolf or bear, something you might not see often in Wisconsin, or definitely the bear thing for the lower half of Michigan.
Yeah, we have bears, but they're mostly in the UP.
Yeah.
Kind of same with wolves. There's been a big thing last few years that they've been trying to reintroduce wolves to Isle Royale.
Yeah.
But that's like way out in the lake. So
yeah. Except for our wolf.
Our wolf.
Remember our encounter or our lack of encounter
Oh,
with
yeah.
wolf? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was unusual. I mean, that was not a normal thing.
For a wolf to show up in a county park in the middle of Washtenaw County? No, I think not.
No. It was very close to a city for one. And also just where we are.
Yeah.
That was also unusual.
We could have seen one though. That would have been so cool.
I mean, that jogger who warned us, she saw it.
Oh yeah.
But we heard it howl, and
we did,
because I thought wolf, no way. But I mean, coyotes are common enough that I would not expect someone who's from Michigan really to confuse a coyote for a wolf. They're very common. You see them on the roadside a lot. Yeah. If you live anywhere remotely rural, there are coyotes all over the place. So yeah, I would not expect someone to easily confuse a coyote with a wolf in Michigan. And then once we heard it howl, like coyotes don't howl. Wolves have a very distinct howl.
Yes.
That was a wolf.
That was very much a wolf. That was very much a wolf for like the biggest Malamute on the planet.
You're right. So yeah, so like we have wolves. We know what wolves look like, certainly in pictures. Yeah. And I would think if I saw one up close, I would be like, yep, that's a wolf. I've seen them use. Like I know what a wolf looks like.
And it probably wouldn't stand up on 2 legs.
No. And they're usually kind of thin, kind of svelte. Wolves are, at least
right.
So for one to be like big and shaggy and stand up on its legs, that's more of like what a bear would do. Right. But we also know what bears look like, unless it's some kind of malformed bear. But I don't know. I don't know if you can get a bear to look like a wolf. Send me pictures. If anyone has pictures, send me pictures.
Right. Well, actually, a very nice segue. A lot of people up until this point, if you're listening, might have already thought of the Gable film. It is well, how do I put this? It's the most famous video evidence of a dogman and also one of the most famous hoaxes.
Mm-hmm.
So the loose story is that a film from the 60s or 70s, silent, so like, I don't know what that would be, 18 millimeter? Something like that.
But it was like an amateur home camera, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
One that anyone could have.
Yeah. Just 1970s, just home camera, silent film, pretty grainy. You know, what you imagine 1970s home movies to look like. It looks like that.
Yep.
Came out in 2007. If you haven't seen it, we'll link that. It's on YouTube for sure. We'll link that in our show notes as well. The short version is it's kind of clips of just home movies. Dad fixing a car, dad and son, going camping. There's a short shot of a really cute dog. And I think there's a shot of the camper. And it just looks like old home movies. And then it takes a really weird Blair Witch turn. From the car, it's the son that we think that is supposed to be filming, because you can see him film himself in the rearview mirror of the truck. So from the truck, as they're driving down the road, they catch something that's up on the hill and it's moving. So they stopped a truck. It cuts and it looks like walking. So presumably they got out of the truck, kept filming, walked up to it. And it is weird. It just looks like this weird thing on four legs. And it catches sight of the guys or the guy in the camera and chases after them in this really weird kind of galloping run on four legs. Film cuts out. Film comes back. Camera is dropped in the ground on its side. All you see is a pair of jaws, and the film ends.
Yeah, it's a really cool film.
It's cool. And the first time I ever saw it, which probably was in 2007, that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, because when it first appeared, nobody really knew what was going on. What was it?
And for a while, it was taken as the greatest evidence we have of the Michigan Dogman, or something weird out in the woods, because damn, that's really good. It's really old footage, harder to fake for sure. Don't have a lot of that stuff left. Unfortunately, it was actually created with the help of Steve Cook, whom you might remember from such songs as The Legend from earlier in this podcast. And, with the help of Mike Agrusa, who is the one who actually is credited to making the film itself.
They did a good job.
They did an amazing job. What?
Because there are some that, people are like, oh, look at this amazing film. It's proof. And I'm like, that is clearly fake.
Yeah.
Or a photo. Like, that was clearly shopped. I'm not even very knowledgeable of how to do these things.
Yeah.
And I can still look at it and go, are you serious? They did an amazing job.
And kind of both fortunately and unfortunately, it's become a lot easier to detect when something is fake. You can stabilize, you can, digitize, you can do all of these things that you can't enhance. You can do all of these things that make it a lot easier to analyze a film. And once someone stabilized it and slowed it down and kind of, lightened it and did all of this stuff, you can really tell that it's just a guy in a ghillie suit. Mm-hmm. And that sucks.
But when you've got shaky cam.
Right. When you've got really grainy old film, you've got, shaky cam, you've got weird lighting, who knows?
Because you can't really tell what it is. It's just a thing, a creature.
Yeah.
Comes running at them. And
then the camera, camera drops. Yeah. And then my first thought was, but what happened to the dog?
No.
That was my first thought. I was like, wait, you guys had a dog.
See, when a lot of these films appear, I'm always like, how did you get this? Because it usually ends with, Jaws coming at the camera. Oh, they got the cameraman or they got the camera. Well, how did you get the film? Were you just walking around, 30 years later? Oh, look, I found this camera lying on the ground.
Camera from the 1970s in snowy Michigan on the ground with perfectly intact film. And of course, when it's a hoax and things like that, you don't want to reveal, you don't want to make up answers for that, because you want that to be part of the appeal.
Yeah, you ruin the mystique. I do find it interesting that this guy invented this song in 87, probably thought it was just going to be a funny gag and then be forgotten. He jumped back into it.
He did.
20 years later, he's like, oh, I'm gonna do another one. Great.
Other people jumped in on it too. I didn't mention this earlier, but in February 1992, Grand Rapids DJ Ron Bailey staged a whole hunt for the werewolf for his listeners with the help of the Grand Rapids radio players, which I didn't know that group existed, and that's amazing.
No, that's fantastic.
However, so they broadcast it, and this is with radio players, so they know how to really up the drama.
Oh, yeah.
It ended up being a small version of the 1937 broadcast War of the Worlds, in that people were calling the radio station thinking everything they heard was real.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. I love these
Right?
stories.
Yeah, no, I kind of love that. At the same time, I'm wondering, well, what was it just kind of in the back of their heads from the 1987 thing that they got it that like werewolves or dogmen or whatever could be real? Like, I want to know what happened in between then and how many people came out with like their own encounters to see what would make people freak out like this. But then again, War of the Worlds was about beings from Mars and people.
Well,
Flipped by
Martians and
aliens.
aliens were very much in people's minds at the time, though.
True. That is true.
There are histories written on it.
Oh yeah, no, some of
Yeah.
which I've written myself, so I'll get there. I
Yeah.
forgot, like I don't have it in my head at the moment, but they're back there. I'll get them.
Yeah, that is. Traverse City and Grand Rapids aren't that far apart. It's still at least 1 hour to 2 hours drive,
Yeah.
but it's a few hours depending on where you're going. But I would consider that region very, very similar in culture, similar in mythology.
Yeah.
So yeah, did the Grand Rapids DJ go, oh, heard the song and went, oh man, yeah, we should do something like that? Or did it come out not exactly independently, but kind of?
I think it was influenced by Steve Cook. It's just funny that ended up being a War of the World situation.
Yeah, like people believed it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it being in April, it's not around Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
People might be caught off guard, so to speak. Whereas in October, you're expecting these spooky things to be happening.
That's a good point.
But in April, like, no, who's thinking about it? It's still literally 6 months away.
Right. I know. I would certainly be caught off guard if you're like, we're having a werewolf hunt and like stuff went down and it's February.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why aren't we doing this for Halloween, folks? Then we all know it's just fun and games. And also, man, February, we're going on a hunt in the woods in February. Okay, have fun.
Yeah, that's cold, especially out there.
It's really cold, but okay.
I mean, even April is still not great.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that region, that Traverse City, north of Grand Rapids, it's a rich region for folklore. There aren't any large cities up there. Grand Rapids is it. But even they're kind of religious, and I typically find religious people to be a little more superstitious, a little more suspicious of the world, because the devil is real, the devil is out there. Yeah, that's interesting. But the Dogman being, or at least with the Loup-garou being very French, that's not a super French area. It's very Dutch. Maybe they have some werewolfiness too. And all of Michigan does have a rich French history, but most recently I would say the Dutch.
Yeah, and you know what? I didn't even think to look into like Dutch mythology or anything like that.
Dutch werewolves, do it now. I mean,
I have a mechanical keyboard. I can't.
We do know that Dutch, also German-speaking, Germanic peoples. Yes. Not modern day German-speaking, but ancient German-speaking. They clearly have a werewolf tradition because the Franks had a word for it. Old English had a word for it. So Old Dutch is also going to have a word for it. They're going to have that concept. But how that translates to modern day, I don't know.
Well, I found werewolven.
Oh, that's a great word. That is clearly werewolf.
A human being with the ability to transform into a wolf. The werewolf is a different word for man-wolf, so to speak. The Noxmary is believed to be the female counterpart of a werewolf.
Oh, so they've gone so far as to invent a female version.
Right. These werewolves are witches.
Yep, like I was saying earlier, magic wolves, magic people who turn into wolves.
Oh, very interesting. In olden days, the word werewolf was a synonym for male witch or shapeshifter. Both men and women changed themselves into animals, but only men showed themselves in wolf or dog form. Oh.
And we know Michigan has witches.
A human wolf sometimes gave away their secret identity through appearance, a bristly unibrow, and guess what? Hair growth on their palms. Doesn't that just mean you're masturbating too much?
Or you're a vampire.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Or
which I don't even want to get into the vampire parallels. We'll let Rose Sinister do that. She has done that.
Right. Yeah. We will unless some like crazy vampire cult has popped up in Michigan history. We will leave the vampires up to the expert.
Yep.
But the Dutch do indeed have a werewolf myth.
See, there you go. Yeah, this article I found on mythologian.net for the Loup-garou does also mention the Native American folklore Wendigo specifically, which
Okay.
I don't know. Should we talk about the Wendigo?
Sure,
I
why not?
Myths and Legends podcast, which is another one of my favorite podcasts.
Mhm.
He does an episode on the Wendigo, and it freaks him the crap out too
Yeah.
because it's a really scary story.
It's scary.
And he kind of talks about the Wendigo as being invisible, but
Yeah.
he doesn't actually get too much into it.
Predator-esque.
Yeah, it's like it's a really scary predator.
Yeah.
You've probably looked more into it than I have. Wendigo is just something that I encountered growing up because it has filtered a little bit into some popular culture like comic books and so forth. But the Wendigo is definitely one of those things I heard about when looking into like Michigan legends and Michigan lore. So it's not like something I grew up with like a werewolf, but it was out there. I knew about it. I'd heard the name.
Right.
I knew it was a scary monster. I knew it lived in Michigan. Part of like the collective Michigan consciousness.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's from First Nations Algonquin tribes, so like Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada, Great Lakes, eastern side of the US. So it's definitely a myth and legend that absolutely would be this far. It's essentially the worst malevolent spirits with characteristics of a human and other things that you could ever possibly dream of. It's fine with like murder, cannibalism. Think of a cultural taboo and it's down with it.
Yeah, it breaks all the cultural taboos.
Yes. It's got a whole like modern day psychosis named after it.
Yeah.
My friend wrote a really great book called Wendigo Psychosis. You should totally get it. Just gonna plug that. I didn't go too much into the Wendigo or the Skinwalker thing. Again, super happy my windows are closed. Just because it doesn't.
Yeah, it seems like a very tenuous connection.
Yeah, it's not a very strong connection, at least in my head. Granted, I have never actually encountered the Dogman or, either of these other two creatures, but it just seems that the Wendigo and the Skinwalker are so much rooted in malevolence and evil and everything like kind of wrong with that can go wrong with humanity. And the Dogman to me feels a lot more like a more natural creature with just instincts, like it's going off of instinct.
Yeah, this website's kind of set up like Wikipedia, basically. So that when I say article, that's what I mean.
Okay.
They don't really describe it. They just say these two creatures are defined to have same characteristics, and that's it. It doesn't define what they are. But
cool, thanks.
in order to become a Wendigo popularly, you have to become a cannibal. That can turn you into a Wendigo. And a lot of Lugaru beliefs are you don't become like a full Lugaru until you eat human flesh. So they share that, but I would say that's a characteristic a lot of creatures share.
Right. Again, it's like the basest base that a human could possibly go.
I mean, that's even vampiric in a lot of ways because, no, vampires don't eat flesh, but they drink blood. They drink human blood. And that's kind of the same thing, really.
Yeah, exactly.
They drink instead of eat. Ooh, big deal.
Right. Yeah. They're still ingesting another of their own species. Like
right.
A human ingesting a human.
And the Lugaru myths are like they have superhuman strength. They can easily break bones. They're super fast and agile. They can jump really far. So like a lot of the things that people do say about the Dogman, they say about the Lugaru.
Absolutely. Yeah. Super strong, jumps really far. There's others. Super fast.
Which are not things typically associated with Bigfoot. So I do find it interesting that people do often equate Bigfoot and the Dogman when a lot of the characteristics being attributed to the Dogman are really more of like a Lugaru.
I agree. And I think I think even just the face being significantly different, Bigfoot supposedly having way more of an ape-like face or a human-like face, the Dogman very clearly having some kind of canine face.
Yeah, having a very animal face.
Yeah, I think it separates, even without the other stuff, I think that separates them pretty thoroughly. Then again, when something darts in front of your car when you're driving 75 down a dark highway, who knows?
Right.
Both of those creatures, Bigfoot and the Dogman, have been known to race out in front of cars, which makes me wonder why we don't have bodies of any of them yet.
Yeah.
It's just more a joke than anything else, but still.
I mean, they would seriously really wreck a car. But I mean, I've seen deer walk away from being hit by a car.
Well, that's
and they're much bigger than a deer.
Yeah.
So they could easily lumber off confused. And I'm looking through this article about Lugaru because it's interesting.
Hmm.
And I know Greg made an instant connection with the Lugaru
Yeah.
when we were talking about Dogman. And I had to kind of look into it because, like I said, Lugaru is not really a thing here, even
Right.
though it more than certainly was at one time. I see no reason why our French Catholics would be the exception.
Yeah. I agree.
There's no way.
We're separated from, the southern US, but not by that much.
No.
There's not
And
an ocean
Canada
between
especially,
us.
like it's still alive in Canada as well. We are far more Canadian than we are Southern.
Yes. Although I think some people that live here would for some reason disagree with that.
Yeah, well, they invaded.
And now they live along all of the roads to get to Traverse City.
Yeah, there's so many different beliefs with the Lugaru of like how you become one. Like apparently at some point in the 16th century, so this is still many centuries ago, people in France started to believe that the Lugaru was genetic. It was something you were born with, but you didn't, like something had to trigger your transformation or trigger the curse. And then you didn't become like a full Lugaru until you ate human flesh. That was when the transformation process was complete, when you ate human flesh. And that's when they mentioned the Wendigo in this article. Speaking of human flesh, but I don't think that the Wendigo had any influence on the Lugaru because they already had this idea in France of eating human flesh.
Yeah.
I think it's just a coincidence, basically.
Yeah.
But also not, because like every culture on this planet has a mythological creature that eats human flesh.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, it's the basis of the base. If there's some kind of evil that you can get to, it's like sorry for hopefully not trigger warning ahead, but it's like rape of a family member and then cannibalism. And that is the bottom of the bottom. That is kind of what humanity has defined as pure evil.
I mean, even biologically, like eating human flesh is gonna make you sick.
Oh yeah, no animals should. As far as I know, I guess there's animals out there that could probably eat their own kind often and be fine. Humans cannot. Humans and cows, it turns out.
Yeah, makes sense.
Cows cannot eat other cows because then we get mad cows.
Where you get things like mad cow disease, and which occurs in other species as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, very few species, I think, can actually eat their own species without very bad consequences.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna say that the Dogman is probably related to the Lugaru.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Its own thing, like Beast of Bray Road, Mothman. I mean, there are these specific creatures associated with specific areas. Dogman is unique to us. It could have gotten that name from the song, but it would not surprise me at all if this kind of creature was being sighted.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have Bigfoot sightings too in Michigan, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, is it a Lugaru that was a person that was turned by eating human flesh? I don't know. That seems kind of mystical to me, but that could have been a real creature. And then some French people were sitting around thinking, well, how could that creature have come about? Oh, I know.
And trying to figure out maybe how to get rid of it, you're also thinking about, is there something that caused it that we can either reverse or prevent from happening again? We're humans. We want answers. It's what we do.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting that a wolf human hybrid it's certainly common in Europe.
Yes.
I don't know how common it is in other societies, but it's very ancient Europe. All of these languages, we have that word, werewolf.
Werwolfen. I love it.
Yeah, I love getting into like these ancient beliefs and seeing how they manifest in today's society.
Oh, me too.
Because on the surface, you might be like, Dogman, that's weird. Where does that come from? It's like, well, actually, there's a rich history around the world of dog people.
Dog people. Come, sit by the fire and I will regale you of all of this history of dog people.
I mean, that there's like, ancient Germanic that then turned into like Guru, and it's in Dutch, it's in English, it's in all these different languages in Europe.
Yeah.
So that's going way back, way back. I wonder if there's what's it called? The Indo-European, like if there's an Indo-European word for this.
Oh, I don't know.
Does it go back that far? Because it goes back pretty far.
I don't know. Get on it. That's your job. That's what you do.
I commented on the episode 99 of History of English Language podcast about werewolf and Lugaru being cognates, And now I understand why, thanks to that episode. So I wonder if he'll get back to me.
I hope so. Start a
Maybe I
whole
should message
conversation
him
about it.
and just be like, hey, I have a thing I want you to research with me.
And then come on my podcast and tell us about the roots of the etymology of all of these weird words in myth and legend.
Yeah. I do know one of the things he talks about, I think pretty early in the podcast, bear and wolf. This came up recently in our like friends Discord chat, that they think that the word for bear just means like brown one.
Yeah.
And it was a way that people would refer to this creature because they thought if you said its real name, it would summon it. And they think the same thing with wolf.
That's amazing, actually.
I'm going to try to look that up. But yeah, but I feel like that also ties into this werewolf legend.
Yeah.
You're that afraid of these creatures that you won't refer to them by their names. And oh my God, now they're half human.
Oh yeah.
Like it's an ancient belief. It's so ancient that like we have absolutely no recordings of it.
Oh, for sure. And just the idea that giving something a name makes it even more powerful. It goes back centuries and centuries in just human tradition. So I would like to regale this anecdote towards the end of our podcast here from Linda S. Godfrey, who writes a lot of paranormal ebooks and a lot of paranormal ebooks that have to do with Michigan. She helped write Weird Michigan from the Weird USA series. She wrote American Monsters, where this anecdote comes from. She's written a lot of stuff. I can't even go into all of her great books. But so Godfrey herself had an encounter with what could have been the Dogman in 2006. In the woods of northern Michigan, she, a few others, and a cameraman from the TV show Monster Quest, who was researching and doing a show on the Dogman, saw a large creature cross the dark road in front of them. It remained just out of spotlight range, but Godfrey saw the spine of something with dark gray fur running upright. They caught a glimpse again as it blocked out the light reflected off a road sign. After measuring the road sign, they determined the thing had to be at least 7 feet tall to have blocked it completely. So not only was she out there doing a show and research on the Michigan Dogman,
right?
She had an encounter with the Michigan Dogman with the camera crew from said show.
Interesting.
Right?
Self-fulfilling prophecy?
I don't know, but I think that's crazy. You're out here making a show about it, trudging through the woods and talking about it out loud, and all of a sudden there it is. So maybe there is something to that name thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm looking at the Proto-Indo-European word that they're pretty sure wolf came from. And they think was derived from the adjective meaning dangerous. And there's a similar word in Hittite. So going back a bit, it meant something negative, and in Old Irish, it meant evil. Wolves were not highly thought of.
No, because they'll kill you and take all your shit.
And there's it could also be related to another word that was a verb that meant to tear up. And they're pretty sure that they can compare it to bear, was reference to an animal subject to cultural taboos.
All right.
They didn't want to say its real name because it would summon it. And that's true of both bears and wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, the Dogman has been compared to both of these creatures. So interesting that humans have been afraid of these things for probably our entire history.
Yeah, and despite all of our technology, despite all of our modern advances, we are still terrified of these things deep down.
Yay, ending on terror.
So I don't know. I'm really on the fence as to whether the Dogman is out there or not, because there's, like I said, there's zero history, but there are hundreds of personal sightings, like modern sightings, nothing like before 1987.
That we can really
point
to with clarity and certainty.
Yeah.
I suspect there probably were still sightings. It wasn't until maybe 1987 that people were able to give it this name. I mean, certainly that happens when I learn a new word or a new thing. I'm like, oh yeah, that happens to me all the time. Whoa. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that was a thing until I learned the name for it, and knowing that we do French, at least, and that includes Michigan, has this rich history of wolf people. And the Dutch apparently also have a history of wolf people.
I think Europe has a history of wolf people.
Yeah, Europe in general. Yeah, I think that's really interesting that like once we didn't have to try very hard to find this history.
Oh, right. All I had to do was like Google Dutch werewolf, and it was, oh, here's the Weerwolfen. Like, here's the whole Wikipedia on it. Here's, a dozen websites describing old myths about it.
Yeah, and all I did was I looked up Lugaru and I found the Wiktionary entry for it, which gives the etymology. And then having recently heard that episode where he talks about how G's and W's were all mixed up because of the Franks, that kind of prompted me to look even further.
Right.
And go even further back. And knowing that wolf was a word that people made up because they were afraid of summoning the creature. You literally see this fear of this creature dating back to the founding of our language.
Yeah.
Founding of language, period. That's incredible. And then now in the 21st century, we have the Dogman. He's got, even if he's kind of a modern incarnation of that phenomenon, he's got a rich history.
Absolutely.
Dating back millennia.
Yeah. In which case, if you're listening to this podcast and you have had an encounter with the Dogman, please tell us about it. We want to hear those kinds of stories. We love those kinds of stories. They kind of help. They definitely help substantiate things for me. I am all about the personal experience. You can send that to contacthauntedmitten@gmail.com. You can leave a comment on our website. You can find us on social medias. You can find us on Patreon. I know I'm mentioning it for a second time, but man, we could use you.
Shout out to Haley, our first patron.
Yeah, Haley.
Woo! You're awesome.
If you want a shout out like that, join our Patreon. If you want to hear,
patrons get a special glow in the dark ghost pin.
You do.
Enamel. It's like nice.
Yeah, it's not just like a pin, but it's like
if you wear a lanyard to work like I do, you can put it on your lanyard. I'm running out of room though. I might have to remove something.
Or an apron like I used to.
That's true. Put it on your apron.
Put on your apron. Your name tag. It is really cute though.
Like my husband has.
Really adorable. And you get stories read to you by Krista.
It's true. And the interview with my mom that was crashed by my cat. You can hear her purring.
Cat crashed an interview, which I'm really surprised. And thank God we're almost done with this because I have not heard a peep from my animals, and that's weird.
Because they're scared of the Dogman.
They are. It's good. Good with it. We'll talk about the Dogman every week.
Tully has very much tried to break into this room.
I haven't heard her, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, because she headbutts the door.
Right.
She did paw a little bit, but for the most part, she just
there was a dog bark. I cursed it. I jinxed it.
See, it's because you say the name and you summon it.
Yeah, you say her. Yeah, trust me. You say the dog's name and she will come running.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like any dog owner is gonna know that. That's why we spell things out, right? Because we don't want to summon it. And we don't want to get the dogs excited.
Do you know how many words that I can no longer use? All right. Okay, we get it. You're good.
Says you're talking about dogs.
She won't. She's laying in bed. She won't lift her head, but she will bark. All right. Well, with my dog barking in the background.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't bark sooner since we kept using the word dog.
I know. I'm surprised she didn't just come and stare at me. She's like, I know that word.
Why keep talking about me?
Check us out on the social media. Interact with us. We're still stuck at home, and now both of us are a tiny bit injured. Nothing for you guys to worry about, but we would like interaction. That would be great.
I'm recording with my foot propped up on my desk.
Same deal. Anything else we need to promote?
Fairy Tales Punked is out. You can purchase that now on your own without the Kickstarter.
Yeah, check out the book. It's awesome, especially if you're listening to a podcast like this. I have a feeling you like myths and legends anyway. Other than that, I don't know. I'm good. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. And as always, happy haunting.